Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. Is everybody prepared and ready? We'll give you a minute before we get started. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Escambia County Sheriff David Morgan, and standing next to me is Mr. Bill Edens. He's the state attorney for the First Judicial Circuit of Florida. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. I'll begin by saying thank you to all the law enforcement officers, local, state, and federal in Northwest Florida who participated in last night's chase and standoff. In the Panhandle of Florida, we take crime seriously and work together to make sure those who pose threats to our citizens are brought to justice. For a week now in the national news, we've seen surveillance videos of the duo and heard of Blake Fitzgerald and Brittany Harper, who have caused multiple crime sprees across multiple states. Images of robbing businesses at gunpoint and taking hostages. Last night at approximately 7:56 p.m., dispatch received a phone call that Famous Footwear, located at the University Town Plaza, was robbed at gunpoint. I apologize for reading this entire statement, but you'll notice as we go on further that this is a pretty convoluted and detailed story, and so we wanted to get as accurate a timeline for you as we could. Witnesses told deputies that a white male and white female walked into the store and began shopping. The white male then walked up to the sales counter, pointed a gun at the clerk, and demanded money. The female continued to shop for shoes and socks. At 9:44, an Escambia County deputy spotted the same vehicle matching the description given by witnesses at the toll plaza on Pensacola Beach. Deputies pursued the suspect vehicle as it fled towards Gulf Breeze, Florida. The suspects then drove over the 3-mile bridge, entering Escambia County once again. The suspects then went east on Gregory Street and then traveled northbound on the 110. At 9:52, the vehicle exited at Brent Lane and then traveled east on Bayou Boulevard. A few minutes later, law enforcement lost sight of the suspect vehicle when they turned eastbound on 12th Avenue in the city of Pensacola. Both the Pensacola Police Department and the Escambia County Sheriff's Office circulated the area looking for the suspects. At 10:16, the suspect's vehicle was spotted turning south on Firestone Boulevard. The vehicle was located in a driveway at a home located in the 700 block of Connell Drive. The suspects had exited the vehicle and fled the scene on foot. Units from the Escambia County Sheriff's Office, Pensacola Police Department, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, and the Gulf Breeze Police Department searched the area. During this time, many residences were searched and citizens gave descriptions of the suspects and the direction they were seen going. At 12:25, Escambia County deputies were advised by residents at a home on Whitney Drive that they had been held hostage inside their home by the two suspects. They advised the deputies that the duo took their red truck. 10 minutes later, the stolen truck was located on the 110 eastbound, traveling across the interstate bridge heading towards Santa Rosa County. The Florida Highway Patrol and the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office were advised of this information. At 12:41, the stolen truck exited the I-10, at exit 26 and continued southbound on Garcon Point Road. Then at 12:45, the stolen truck turned westbound on Saragon Lane, and units blocked off this entire area and set up a perimeter. An armed standoff ensued for approximately 15 minutes. The suspects refused to surrender. They then attempted to exit the vehicle and enter an occupied dwelling. At 12:52, the ECSO units advised that shots had been fired. Fitzgerald was pronounced dead at the scene, and Harper was wounded was taken into custody and transported to a local hospital. Again, I would like to thank members of the law enforcement community in Northwest Florida, both our local and federal officers who participated in this, who helped us bring justice to Northwest Florida. I would also advise the media that it was the Escambia County Sheriff's Office deputies that were engaged in the actual firing of weapons in Santa Rosa County. To the best of our knowledge, it was only officers from Escambia County that returned fire. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Edens.
Thank you, Sheriff. I'd like to join with the Sheriff in thanking the various law enforcement agencies that participated and cooperated in this matter. We had the Pensacola Police Department, Game and Fish Commission, the Santa Rosa Sheriff's Office, the U.S. Marshal's Office, and perhaps others as well, of course, the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. The cooperation by law enforcement and our office throughout Northwest Florida is excellent, and I believe that that is one of the reasons that we have been able to be effective and efficient in this matter. The woman involved is in the process of being charged with home invasion robbery, false imprisonment, and grand theft auto. She currently is in the Sacred Heart Hospital. It's my understanding, although I'm not absolutely sure, that her injuries consist of injuries to her leg and ankle. We have, the sheriff's office has armed guards, and we are in the process of arresting her on those charges. Our office is also working with other law enforcement agencies, including the Escambia County Sheriff's Office and Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office, to investigate other possible crimes. One involves a crime of robbery of Alvin's Island in Destin, Florida. Another one involves a famous footwear occurrence in Escambia County, Florida. And there's a possibility of a matter involving the Piggly Wiggly in North Escambia County, although those matters remain under investigation, and it will be necessary to gather additional information. We have some conflicting evidence as it relates to the Piggly Wiggly matter in North Escambia. As I'm sure you can understand, because these matters remain under investigation and prosecution, the sheriff and I will be somewhat limited in the information that we can provide to you. I will also note that the Escambia County Sheriff's Office was lawfully engaged in fresh pursuit when they crossed over into Santa Rosa, so there's no legal issue there with regard to their authority to take the action that they took. As a standard procedure in Northwest Florida, by agreement with the sheriff and other agencies, anytime officer-involved shooting occurs, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement is called, and they handle the matter as far as investigating the actions of the officers to make sure that there's no problems there. Preliminary indications, of course, are that there are not any problems that we're aware of. They actually work the crime scene as well. My office, including myself, was out on scene in the middle of the night, and the crime scene had already arrived. The crime scene people had already arrived and were conducting their investigation. The deceased person remained at the location until after crime scene had arrived and began their investigation. Sheriff, does that cover the matters that we had discussed and indicated need to be covered? Sheriff may have some additional information.
Well, I apologize. I just noticed also, Dominic, would you like to come up front, sir? United States Marshal Service, who was one of our federal partners in this. I want to ensure that Dominic and his folks, as you well know, we're honored to work with the United States Marshal Service. There's not a finer agency in the world for bringing fugitives to justice than the U.S. Marshal Service. So, Dominic, thank you for being here. All right, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll answer any questions that we can.
Sheriff, as it pertains to the shooting, did Mr. Fitzgerald point a weapon at your deputies before they opened fire?
I really think that it'd be more appropriate to wait until the investigation is completed to respond to that. As I indicated, my office was on scene, FDLE was on scene. I've met and talked with their supervisor. We've viewed the scene, and beyond that, I don't think we should comment any further. As you know, of course, the suspect was armed.
Let me ask you this way, and I'm just trying to get the idea, as the sheriff described it, he exits the vehicle and tries to enter an inhabited dwelling. What would have been sort of in the protocol for the deputies to open fire as he is going into that dwelling?
Well, you have, without getting bogged down in the investigation, you have an individual that is clear has committed several crimes, violent crimes, that has a weapon and is going into a house in the middle of the night. That's about all, from my perspective, that pretty well answers the question. But again, I don't want to get too involved in discussing the investigation, because we do have a very detailed, very methodical, objective procedure where the Florida Department of Law Enforcement reviews the matter, and it takes several weeks for them to document the crime scene, interview the witnesses. They've interviewed some of the shooters, and are continuing in the process of doing that. So I really don't think we should go into any more detail with regard to that at this time, and I hope you understand.
Was he able to make it inside the house?
No.
So the gunfire exchange happened outside of the house?
Yes.
How many people were inside that house?
Can one of you who's answering it step up to the microphone?
What was the question again?
How many people were inside that house?
Well, it's undetermined at this time. There were people inside the house. It's my understanding that actually the homeowner may have exited the front of the house. The incident happened at the back of the house. But there were people, there were deputies in the house, or law enforcement people. The Marshal Service had some people in the house at the time.
Was there a reason why he stopped there? Did he have any connection to that house?
He,
Or
as far as we can determine, he had absolutely no connection to that house. That he was running from the law and run down Garcon Point Road and turn right, and had nowhere to go, basically.
Yeah, Christina, to expound on that question, I asked that this morning. Of course, again, the investigation continues, and understand things will change, you know, as much as we try to be specific in these. We can find no connection with this area. I asked that question, any family, close friends, etc. Right now, we can find no tie of any kind that why they would pick this area of Florida to come to.
We were being told that they wanted to move to Florida to get married, to start a new life. Have you guys been able to verify any of that information?
That's purely speculation. Right now, we have heard a statement, uncorroborated, that they were going to go to Panama City to get married. That was their eventual goal, was to go to Panama City. And that's about all I can say. That's just a statement. It's uncorroborated.
How long did the shootout last, and did you have to evacuate neighboring homes? I mean, how did that work out? Can
Do you
talk
mind if I
about
answer that? It was a very, very fluid situation, and like most shooting incidences, it was, you know, what was a matter of minutes or a matter of seconds seemed like a matter of minutes, and the answer is no. It occurred so quickly that the residents of the home were taken care of to get them out of the area where the firefight may have ensued, and it occurred very, very quickly. So no time to evacuate any area surrounding.
Can you tell us more about the chase? I mean, at what speeds did they reach? Were you in pursuit of them going from the beach back into Escambia County? And then when they were on the interstate, how fast were they going? And are you fortunate that it wasn't during the busier traffic?
Well, actually, there was quite a little bit of traffic at that time, around 10 o'clock at night. And then again, remember, they fell off the grid for a couple of hours when they were over in the Cordova Park area. But the traffic was still fairly heavy. That's why we lost the suspects a couple of times inside the city, was for that reason. And then, of course, they were very elusive in that they would, you know, stop a vehicle and they would flee on foot only to obtain another vehicle. But the speeds themselves, I couldn't estimate at this time. That will be part of the investigation. We'll pull that information up. So, I mean, you know, I could tell you one speed and it turns out to be another. And remember, almost always in high-speed chases, there's no constant speed.
Were your officers obviously careful not to engage in too much
The-
of the traffic issues?
The public safety, you know, is always paramount because, you know, we may be in pursuit of someone, but if we, you know, end up killing an innocent bystander, I mean, that's kind of defeats the purpose.
Has Brittany Harper been interviewed yet? Is she waiting and cooperating?
It's my understanding she is conscious. We have had law enforcement contact with her. I do not feel that it would be appropriate to comment in any further detail on that issue at this time.
Can you talk more about the home invasion on Whitney and the hostages? What exactly went on inside?
Go ahead, Sheriff.
I'm not comfortable to release that. Again, we crossed many jurisdictional lines here. That was within the city limits of Pensacola. We do have information as to, again, obviously to the residents that they were in, the owners of the home, et cetera. That's information we're not going to release at this time. It's part of the ongoing investigation. But yes, we have details as to, you know, what occurred, when it occurred, who was involved, et cetera. But we're not going to speak to that issue at this time.
So you can't say how long they were held hostage?
A couple of hours. Couple of hours.
Hours.
Yeah, approximately a couple of hours.
Are any officers on administrative leave?
6R, as Mr. Edmonds pointed out, it's our standard procedure at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. It's not, now by the way, I want to be very specific here, that's not indicative of officers have done anything wrong. What we do when they're involved in a shooting is we turn the investigation of the shooting over to another agency. In this case, it's Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and pending their clearance, the officers are placed on administrative leave.
Did all six officers discharge their weapons during the exchange, or can you say?
No, won't speak to that issue at this time.
Sheriff, the first time that they were on your radar last night was at 7:56 when you got that call of a robbery at Cook?
For what transpired after this, yes, that was it. Now, of course, anytime we have, I don't want to give away too much intelligence information in law enforcement locally here, but anytime we have an uptick in any particular crime, or in this case we get a bolo of suspects who may be armed that are traversing our area, in close coordination with the Marshal Service, sometimes the FBI, it depends upon the agency, the lead agency, we notify our special units, whether it's property crimes, homicide, whomever, and all units are on the lookout for these individuals. And so, our radar was up, obviously looking for these people. They'd been on the local news, and again, the Piggly Wiggly incident, which is yet to be, confirmed, was one of the things that piqued everybody's interest. And so, but for the purposes of this press conference and what led to the shooting and the arrest, it was the shoe robbery.
7:56.
Yes, ma'am.
10 suspects were armed and dangerous, multiple states. How do you feel your deputies responded to this?
I think they responded entirely appropriately. Entirely.
Since this is very multi-jurisdictional, I know your deputies were the ones who ultimately engaged. We kind of ended the journey here for this couple, but who is the lead agency on this case?
Right now, it's the state attorney.
Well, the agencies demonstrated excellent cooperation. As I've indicated, you had the Pensacola Police Department that has actually prepared the warrant for the home invasion robbery and the false imprisonment and the grand theft auto. You had the sheriff's office that was chasing the people, but as the sheriff indicated, he notified the Santa Rosa Sheriff's Office and the Highway Patrol and perhaps other agencies. The Santa Rosa Sheriff's Office was aware of the location of the suspect when they were on I-10 going east, and actually picked them up as they went east into Santa Rosa County. And they participated in the matter. It just so happened that the way the final incident developed, the Escambia officers were the ones that were involved in the actual gunfire, but other law enforcement were present. In fact, the U.S. Marshal Service was also present and had been out in assisting in the investigation earlier that night, and they were actually there on scene, as well as the Santa Rosa Sheriff's Office. So in terms of a lead agency, really, we've reached the point now where the sheriff and I work very well together. All the agencies do. And what I've done is I called John Mochan about 2:30 and told him I was going to join him on his night shift. And I've assigned the case to him. He went to the scene and met me there, and he will coordinate between all of the agencies, which include not only the ones I've mentioned, but also the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office involving the Alvin's Island matter. Our office has actually already contacted them and made sure they were aware